goodies. Want to make everybody yell.
See, mine keeps saying it's no internet, but everybody else has internet. I went here.
Looks like we have green, Pam.
Thank you. All right. I call to order the Lake Mills Plan Commission meeting of February 27th. We can proceed with roll call. Dr. Mason had earlier mentioned to me he is not going to be able to be here this evening. He is traveling. So we can proceed with roll call.
Mr. Holman,
Here.
Mr. Coots,
Here.
Ms. Lazaris,
Here.
Ms. Curler,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
and as Ms. Lazaris said, Dr. Mason did let us know that he'd be absent. Mr. Grady did as well.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Next is item number 3, correction and or acceptance of the meeting minutes of November 28, 2023. Is there a motion concerning these minutes?
I'll move approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes of November 28th of 2023.
All right.
Mr. Coots will second.
It's been moved by Ms. Curler and seconded by Mr. Coos to approve the minutes of November 28th. And we can then proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Coots,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Abstain.
Mr. Holman.
Abstain.
Motion passes 3-2, or 3 with the 3 acceptance. Thank you.
Aye, thank you. All right, next is item number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time. We do not have a public hearing this evening. We do have 2 plat requests that we will be discussing, but they are not public hearings. However, public comment may be made on items that are on the agenda. Public comment may also be made on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting your comments. Also fill out the sign-in sheet at the podium. For people online, please follow the Zoom link or the phone number listed on the Plan Commission agenda. Are there any public comments at this time?
Katie Whipperforth at 365 Rosewood. I actually have some information I want to share with you, but I wasn't able to email it. So if you want to pass this. Did a survey for those regarding the At our last Plan Commission meeting, it was implied that the appearance of a fence would be more important to the residents of the city of Lake Mills than the overall safety of the individual homeowner. Yes, we can push our fence back over 20 feet, but why is that our only option? When I read the presented recommendation, I'm disappointed that words like closed off, uninviting, and aesthetic consideration were presented as reasons to reject the agenda in front of you today. These are not words which are utilized in the City of Lake Mills fencing code and should not be considered as it relates to your recommendation. I've reached out to those in the community at Brookstone and Lake Mills Facebook pages and asked for their input, which I have provided to you today. As you can see, not one person voted no, and I had an overwhelming amount of messages from individuals that expressed their frustration with not having a 6-foot privacy fence as an option. However, they chose not to pursue it further. As you review the agenda items in front of you today, I ask that you keep in mind the wishes of your constituents and along with the words which are used in the current code, which is to prevent the creation of nuisances and to promote the general welfare of the public. One could argue that a lock on your front door is uninviting and provides a public benefit. It's a slippery slope when the council decides to make decisions based on appearances and words which are not in the code. Thank you for your time.
Aye, thank you. We are still in public comment. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Sorry, I'm new at this. My name is Dennis Metcalf. I live at 360 Brookstone Drive. I'm a recent mover from Cottage Grove to here, and I've never been in here, but I love your building. It's a lot nicer than what I came from. My comment is I live on the corner of Brookstone and American Way, and first off, I love living across from the park because of all the ball games. I get to go to the ball games. I don't mind the traffic and all the rest of that stuff. But they park in my backyard, basically. My patio and my porch is back there. So, and if you've ever gone by my house, it's lower than the rest. My backyard is lower than the rest of people's houses around. So when people go by on the sidewalk, which is about 2 feet higher than my backyard, they just look down into my backyard. So I've had a few times where I've had my family members over, which all of them live in this lovely city, and it's like you're in a fishbowl. And I guess I just would like to have some privacy from my standpoint. Just to give you an idea, last Sunday was a nice day out. It was in the 40s or the 50s. So I have a camera, and I counted people going by my backyard, 42 of them, between 3:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I guess I would just leave it up to anybody else that would like to have that many people walking by your backyard and looking in and seeing what's going on. So my issue is just the privacy issue. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Lori Ream, 1131 American Way in Lake Mills. Been a Lake Mills resident since 2006, and I just want to speak in favor of our neighbors to have the option to have a privacy fence in their side yard without losing their backyards. I do see it as an improvement for the properties, and they don't look aesthetically unpleasing to me, so I just wanted to speak in favor of that. Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. We are still in public comment. Would anyone else like to speak?
I'm Mike Whipperfirth. I live at 365 Rosewood. My wife pretty much said, a lot of things that we were kind of putting together, but I just want to reiterate the fact that the code states it's about general welfare and safety of the public. Well, we are the public, and I guess the last time we were here, I wanted to just say that the safety of my dogs and my kids are my number one priority. So if I had people opening my fence and letting my dogs out and people stopping by my house, it's kind of a safety concern for my kids and my family. So if the aesthetically pleasing part to this is a reason to say no to it, then you kind of don't care about the safety of my family. The code states safety. It doesn't say anything about appearance. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are still in public comment. Would anyone else like to speak? All right, hearing none, we will go on to item number 5, discussion recommendation on Drumlin Crossing Condominium Plat Amendment, Formul Development, LLC, 1204 South Main Street. Mr. Evenson, if you could, and other staff, if you want to say something about this and provide an overview of this requested amendment.
Sure. Good evening. My laptop's giving me a little fritz, so I'm going to have to kind of go on the fly here. But really what you're looking at is just a minor amendment to an existing condo plot. They were approved for 2 5-unit and 2 3-unit buildings, and they have opted to skip that 5th building if possible and do 2 2-unit townhomes in place of that 5-unit on the far west building closest to South Main. Not much else really changes other than using 1 unit out of that 5 going down to 4.
All right, very, very well. for our
The only
discussion?
thing I'd add is the impetus for it is the developer has discovered that there's a market for units with main floor primary bedrooms, and that market exceeds the five unit. The middle units have more difficulty selling than the 2 units side by side, and then they'll be building these with main floor primary bedrooms, which they've discovered in their sales is something that people are looking for.
All right, very well, thank you. Well, Plan Commission, we are in discussion. We do have in front of us motion 2421, recommendation to City Council for condominium plat amendment, Formul Development LLC, Drumlin Crossing Townhomes Condominium, 1204 South Main Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel number 2460713, 2422005. This motion does set forth the city's authority concerning land division. The aforementioned amendment to the Drumlin Crossing Townhomes Condominium Plat, review by city staff. Tonight's Plan Commission discussion and review. This motion does provide for a Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the plat amendment to allow construction of the 2 duplexes as Mr. Daly just mentioned, and in place of the previously approved 5-unit building nearest South Main Street. So, are there any comments or questions concerning this requested amendment? Ms. Gurler.
I have a question, I guess, about the financing. This is in a TIF district, and does this change affect the financing or the increment?
It won't affect their obligations under the development agreement, so they'll still have to hit the valuation that they agreed to. So the council will have to approve an amendment to the developer's agreement at the meeting where they will also consider the condo plat amendment.
All right, very well.
That was my question, and then I guess I just have a comment. I'm glad to see the reason for their change, because that's certainly something that I hear as a council member. People, especially seniors, are looking for somewhere to downsize, and having that first floor main bedroom is probably a real asset.
All right, all right. Are there any further comments or questions on this proposed plat amendment? Would anyone like to make a motion concerning motion 2421?
Mr. Holman will make a motion to adopt the motion as presented.
Mr. Coots will second.
All right, very well. Mr. Holman moved and Mr. Coos seconded to pass motion 2421. Is there further discussion? All right, in that case, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Mr. Coots.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Our next item is item number 6, discussion recommendation on Lake Mills Storage Condominium Plat, 730 Jefferson Street. And we have in front of us the prepared motion for that. And Mr. Evenson and staff, do you have an overview of the request?
Sure. This one probably looks pretty familiar to you guys. Back in October of last year, a conditional use was granted to this property for storage units. Once he received conditional use, he thought about it, and we actually had a phone conversation with him the other day, kind of asking why, what the push was to go to condos, and he said he's a realtor, and in some of the other municipalities, they had some pretty good luck going the condo route versus just straight up rental storage units. So that was his reasoning for it. Nothing should change the use. That was kind of our big concern, and other people's concern was, if I own this condo, does the use change? And it's still considered storage. That's what it's zoned for. That's what the conditional use is for. So any modifications to the use of these units would need conditional use amendment, I will say. So realistically, nothing changes appearance-wise. Site plans, buildings, all the requirements stay the same. they're just gonna have condoed out each individual unit.
All right, very well. All right, well, we do have a prepared motion, 2422, condominium plat approval, Lake Mills Storage Condominium. This motion does set forth the city's authority regarding land division. The condominium plat request by John Jewell for a storage condominium plat at 730 Jefferson Street. The review by city staff determining compliance of the applicable sections of Chapter 650 of the Municipal Code. And tonight's review by the Plan Commission. And this provides for a Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the plat request subject to submission of all supporting documentation in proper form. If such documentation is not submitted in final form within the time period required by the city, the approval is recommended herein would be null and void. This recommendation is also subject to any amendment to the condominium declarations as recommended by the city attorney, any additional easements deemed necessary by the city engineer and public works director, and any technical corrections required by the city engineer or Jefferson County. Plan commissioners and staff, do you have any comments or questions regarding this requested plat?
No.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion concerning motion 2422?
I'll move approval of Plan Commission Motion 24-2-2 regarding Lake Mills Storage Condominium.
Mr. Coots will second.
All right, very well. Ms. Curler has moved and Mr. Coots seconded to pass motion 2422, and we can proceed then with a roll call vote.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Mr. Coots,
Aye.
Mrs. Zaris.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. And now we have number 7, discussion recommendation amendment to zoning code section 66014 fences. And I will start first. I will call on Mr. Evenson to give his observations and analysis of this potential amendment and also his recommendation.
Sure. So the memo kind of spells out the history of this. It was brought to us last year. The owners at 365 Rosewood wanted to keep, they'd put a fence up without getting a permit. We had a complaint on it that it was a 6-foot privacy fence in a street yard. I had a discussion with them and said that their option was to do a conditional use. They brought that in, was awarded a conditional use for the 6-foot privacy fence, but there's nothing in our code that allows to remove the 50% opaque requirement in the front yard and street yard. I think it was you guys that had asked for maybe to revisit this ordinance and see if it was something that we want to change or modify. And that's kind of where that kind of brought us back to this planning commission meeting. The recommendation that the staff gave basically was just siding with the existing ordinance that the 50% opaque's been there. It kind of gives an open and inviting appearance to the neighborhoods with fences not being right up to the property lines and being able to see throughout the neighborhood, I would say. That's what I think the intent of that existing fencing code is going for.
All right, very well. All right. Plan commissioners, do you have any comments or questions concerning this matter?
So is there any reason why we couldn't put together a working session and put this and maybe some other items that we've had concerns about? I know Mr. Holman has some, that we could put together a couple working sessions and work through some thoughts and ideas and maybe come up with some more public opinions and things like that to see whether or not we would like to make changes to this.
No, we certainly can. It has been a long time since there was an overhaul of the zoning ordinance, and since then, we have made certain amendments to the zoning ordinance. So certainly, we can have a work session.
Anybody else think about that?
Well, obviously, I totally like the idea. I think this is living proof of, some of the recommendations we got in the past from different planning consultants, and now the public is speaking, and this is an opportunity to look at some things, and I couldn't be happier with our current staff that's present and in the background that they also consult with, because they're seeing things that make sense now to the community. I mean, these people actually, we used to beg people to come, and now, they're willing to stand up and express their opinions, and that's important. So, yeah, I think whatever the correct, way to approach this is, whether it's a work session or whatever, but I'm certainly in favor of this and couldn't be prouder of the group of us.
Yeah, as we all know, that something like this, planning commission docs, things like that, they're living documents, so they change, and they need to change over time. So I can't see a good reason why we couldn't look at certain things and certain parts of it and, get some more input from community members into this, because obviously we don't want this stuff written as a bubble of just us saying this is what we think and then getting it approved by the council. So, not saying we've done that. I'm just saying we don't want to do that.
Aye, that's correct.
I was wondering if there are some particular topics or sections or, chapters of the zoning code that, Mr. Holman, I know you had some ideas perhaps you would want us to focus on. Is there a list? It could, it's a big code, so
Yeah.
it could take a lot of work sessions, and we could be sort of all over the place.
And you're right.
Might be good to have some focus.
And we do have a few items that we've already talked about, so garages.
Setbacks, just like
Setbacks.
some pretty simple things that, just discuss it, not only our input, staff's input, whatever public, would come to a meeting.
Signs is another one. Signs is while it may not be as big right now downtown, but signs has always been a part that has caused a lot of issues in the past, so.
Sign code probably needs a rewrite.
And see, that's stuff that me as a plan commission doesn't hear, what the staff goes through on things like the sign ordinance and or the council. So.
One thing that I think I'd be interested in too is, and whether staff has data on this, or, what are the things that people are commonly requesting where the code, may be a barrier. This is the first situation with the Whipperforths that I've encountered, the 50% opacity thing, so I'm not sure if that's happening to a lot of people, or if it's just this unique situation, and, whether a full privacy fence is the solution. There might be some other solutions. So I'd be really interested in, I guess, kind of some data from the staff on what are some of the issues that are proving most challenging to property owners when they request whatever projects they're doing.
Sure. The opacity one really has not been a huge battle for me in this municipality. The height has always been one, some people with dogs, like a 5-foot fence in the front yard or in this, but opacity really hasn't been a big one. I was just talking to Dan. Ironically, you're talking about doing a work session. Our ordinance spells out what materials you can use, and like vinyl or architectural is not included in there. Some composites aren't included in that. So kind of eager for you guys to do a work session too. I think there's a few things that could be reworded in the fencing section as well, other than the opacity.
And even some, like we've given before, some latitude, because it seems like just to keep up with technology that changes so quickly, you could be either not opening up or limiting something that's not even developed yet, that could be,
Yeah, it's very tough when you itemize list of things that is accepted instead of having a little bit of, like you said, leeway for the staff to kind of adjust on the fly with times that change or materials that change, for sure.
and I don't want to speak for Mr. Foster, but over the course of time, he's said numerous times about these conclusive lists that we deal with, and, you know, we really don't struggle with it. Staff is what struggles with it.
Yeah.
So if we could just, you know, important stuff.
Yeah, we can roll it in. We can try and come up with a list if members have things they want to be looked at, to let us know what those specific ones would be, other than the ones you've listed tonight. We do have we're still trying to get through the report and some of the, I guess, the low-hanging fruit or the simpler things that the Plan Commission asked us to look at in the affordable housing report that we can do that will, I won't say drastically lower the cost of construction, but, you know, maybe on the margins, make things a little more affordable or possible. So we can roll that together. We haven't gotten to it yet. There's just been a lot of priorities of the city council that we've been working on. So we haven't gotten to it, but we have a March or a special plan commission outside of the regular plan commission in March. Or March 26th is our next meeting, which lines up with spring break. So we'll have limited staff available, including myself. I'll be gone that week. So if we had a special meeting in early April to give us a month to put together a memo and some materials for you for a global look at, not maybe a complete rewrite of the zoning code, but some specific things that you may get the most mileage out of.
Yeah. Setbacks, fencing, signs. I think if we look at chunks of them like that and then see if there's more later on to tackle at a different time, I think we'll gain more ground by doing small bits.
And we may find in the work session that a section needs a complete rewrite, like the zoning code. We might need, not the zoning code, the sign code is dated. It was not updated with the 2015 zoning code rewrite. It's cumbersome. It's difficult to interpret and to implement and to manage. We may need to create a budget item, you know, for us to go through a rewrite process of that. Seek out some advice, because that one will probably be more involved than minor changes.
Yeah. Well, you weren't here when it really hit the fan for a while. People were out, businesses were out there pulling other signs out of the streets. So it's much better than what it was.
I appreciate, Mr. Daly, that you brought up the, sorry, now I lost my train of thought. No, that's okay. I was thinking about the comprehensive plan, although affordable housing, because that's something in our comprehensive plan, lest we forget that was just recently adopted. That did have some very specific things that, you know, our commission talked about that we wanted to work on. And so, you know, looking at what the zoning issues, I'm not recalling too many of them other than the affordable housing at the moment, but looking at that implementation section, that, you know, that would maybe help us identify some priorities as well. And if I could ask setbacks, can you tell me a little bit more about that one? What were some of the issues?
I think there's some issues with driveway setbacks, garage setbacks, where they can be located.
Like from a side lot line?
Yeah, and
Okay.
not so much in new developments, because that's a whole different ballgame. It's where houses have been there 100+ years. It just makes it makes it hard for people to do things that really do not affect the main thing, which is fairness. I've been lectured in length on this fairness issue. And if there's anything that wasn't fair, it'd be imposing a brand new zoning code on an area of town that's 100+ years old. So, and specifically, garage setbacks and driveway setbacks. Staff had plenty of issues with that this year alone.
Just so the Plan Commission is aware, we do look for what opportunities there are to achieve what a builder or a resident wants within the existing zoning code that allows it. So for example, when we've run into issues on garages specifically over the last year and a half, if it's a detached garage, there's a certain regulation. If that garage is attached by a breezeway, the zoning code considers it an attached garage, not a detached garage. So sometimes by offering them the opportunity to connect it by a breezeway, you can then operate under a different setback requirement that allows you to have, what you want to do. So we do look for the opportunities to do so. Now, maybe changes to the zoning code would eliminate the need to do something like that if there's something we want to accomplish with it. But our goal typically is to see if there's a way to accommodate it within the code. If there's not, then sometimes the answer is no. That does happen. But we do try to be creative when we can.
And if we could just show you some more latitude so that you could, see these things firsthand and then, look at it from the firsthand that you see it, stuff that can make this more simple, because, the packages you all present, you've gone through it anyway, so if we could give you some latitude and if it would make sense and still be fair, and if it's just a matter of a microscopic zoning change, I would certainly be for that.
And I think even for like the item before you tonight, staff's recommendation is not to change the code, but I think even within that, there's leeway for a potential compromise solution in that, staff isn't going to recommend to you to allow a 6-foot tall privacy fence with that's not see-through, that's on the property line, right? But the exception it says that the setback has to just be more than the minimum setback. That's difficult to establish what is the purpose of that. So if we establish that if you want to have a privacy fence in your side yard and the Plan Commission decides that's something that they would like to relax that prohibition, can we find a setback that would allow for the desirable amount of landscaping so that when you're walking by, it's not right up against you, that you're walking across a barrier essentially, that we have to think, what if everyone on every street corner, every corner lot requested to do this? Is that what we would want to see? It may not be, but if there's a 6-foot setback from the property line that you can plant tree, 6 feet is what you need to plant a tree, that you can plant something more significant that can that works well, with the area and provide opportunity there, then I think staff may be is open to a solution such as that. Our recommendation on this one specifically comes from if every corner lot requested the same thing, the same treatment under the code, and you had every corner lot that had is it 0% opaque or 100% opaque 6-foot tall fence, that would change the character of the neighborhood, which the zoning code does consider. So those are the types of things that we may be able to look at in the work session. Is there a solution to be had to get what you want, relax the prohibition, but not go all the way to zero regulation?
And then not have like vision corridor safety concerns. Yeah.
Right, that'll be always,
I'm fascinated by this, just thinking about all of this, because Mr. Holman, I agree with you. We want to be able to, if there are things that are overly restrictive, and we can propose to change them and give staff more latitude, I'm in favor of that. But we don't want to have vagueness, right? I mean, we're hearing public input tonight on, what does safety mean? Well, you look at the purpose of our zoning code. What is maintaining light and airflow? What does that mean? We don't want to put our staff in the position of having to interpret vague concepts. So we have to take those purposes and those concepts and then put numbers to them, like here's how high your fence can be where. And that's and that's what will help us accomplish those goals, you know? So you want to give that flexibility to property owners and to staff, but with still having clear standards.
And I totally agree with that, and a lot of that can be accomplished with only relaxing the code some, but having it available by conditional use. Because people, I don't know, I've been on here so long that people are worried about, you know, a consensus or something like that. But by definition, a conditional use is a use by condition. So every situation is unique, and you know they can be revoked. I know I probably not easily, but I'm for the option of conditional use based on staff recommendations.
I think creating exceptions to the zoning code, creating an avenue to exceptions in the zoning code is desirable. Creating discretion in your appointed building inspector, zoning administrator is desirable. I don't know that use of a conditional use permit to amend zoning code is really appropriate. There's a variance process for this, and this specific section regarding fencing existed before this, and it wasn't changed to require variance for this treatment, which is fine, but it's not contemporary, and it's not really the way that these processes typically go at this point. Conditional uses can be overused. And when you're varying the code through a variance, there's a very formal procedure and essentially a quasi-trial where findings of fact are necessary to grant that variance. A conditional use is a little bit more informal. There is a hearing, there's a gathering of public information, but it's not the same fact-finding endeavor, just based on definitional. So creating an avenue for exceptions is very important with regard to a zoning code. The right mechanism, we can probably discuss all day.
There may be things that we may want to remove from the zoning code as well, to create an avenue for an exception to something without having to go through the variance process. So zoning codes by statute, in order to vary from them, you have to go through the zoning board of appeals. So for example, this fence ordinance, it's odd that it's within the zoning code, but then creates a conditional use avenue for an exception to it.
Signage as well.
And signage as well. So it is abnormal, because you're creating, the statutes say to vary from the zoning code, you need to get a variance from the zoning board of appeals. And yet we've circumvented that through a conditional use permit. Is that appropriate? Within the zoning code, it may not be. Should it be in the subdivision code instead? Should it be a separate fencing code instead? Those are the types of things that may want to be considered, because the variance process is one. If you want to provide an opportunity for an exception, a variance is not the way to do it, because variances are, the bar to achieve a variance is incredibly high and very difficult to meet. It has to be that there's a physical property, there's a physical characteristic on the property that is not present on other properties in the same vicinity that cannot be overcome in another way. Otherwise, the zoning board of appeals is obligated to decline the variance. So it's set out by case law between the Wisconsin Supreme Court that has litigated on it, and it's a very difficult process to obtain a variance. If it's outside of that zoning code, you have more leeway on how you create an exception under the code.
I'm so glad you explained that, because that's been my frustration for forever. The bar that needs to be set to accomplish that is so high. So I guess as we move forward, you know, maybe subtle changes to this code based on staff recommendations would be where to start. And we probably won't get it right. You know, we'll probably have to do it again. But as long as we're doing something to make some changes.
Would you like us to put together some materials on sections that we should look at and what we may be able to do? And then I'll work with Misty to schedule a work session a special meeting of the Plan Commission in early April.
That would be fine. Yes, I think that'd be great.
Will we still be meeting for regular business at the end of March, or?
If we don't have items yet. So if we don't, we're past the point now where if something came forward that required a notice for a public hearing, that we'd be able to accommodate that. So the only things that could come up would be things that don't require a public hearing, and we haven't received applications that fit that description yet. So we may not.
All right. All right, well, that sounds like that is going to go well. So we can look forward to that work session, and that these items will come through for that, and we have a good list already. So that sounds very good.
Is the end result of a work session going to be a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council? Is that ultimately where this leads to?
It can be. Usually a work session, you create a work product and then you bring it back to.
Sorry, yeah, I
yourself.
skipped a step there.
You bring
I'm
it back
sorry.
to a regular meeting of the Plan Commission to issue a recommendation to the City Council for an amendment to the code.
Okay.
Right, that would be how it would go, yes. Mhm.
Is the work session a necessary step?
It's not a necessary step, but in some cases it's a desirable step because it is very helpful. And we did this in the code rewrite of 2012 to 2014, where we had work sessions because there was a lot to talk about before the proposed amendments came formally before the Plan Commission. So they're very helpful in that regard. So
Yeah,
it's not necessary,
usually a
but
more
it's helpful.
informal. It's usually a bit more informal. We set up
No.
tables and so
Sure.
that everyone has space to look, review materials and work at instead of being up at the dais.
And then also, somebody's opinion, like mine, could be wrong, and then you'd have all the people to debate the issue. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's why I think it's important.
All right. For this, the zoning issue, and are there any further comments or questions on this, on this topic? All right, hearing none, we go on to item number 8, recommendations for future agendas, and we have made these recommendations. Are there any further things to talk about for future agendas? All right. In that case, we go on to item number 9, adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Coots will second.
It's been moved by Ms. Gerler and seconded by Mr. Coos to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, fine. Meeting is adjourned.